She had two rules of the house.
Don't leave dirty clothes in the laundry room floor. And when you use microwave, just clear the time off of it.
We got into an altercation. She choked me. I'm pregnant. I wanted to go.
Did the printer work before you sent it?
It did, Your Honor.
See, we opened it up. It had ink all over the place.
I hope you're proud of yourself. You are a terrible person.
Plaintiff Brenda McGee claims she loaned her step-granddaughter and her boyfriend money to buy a car and hasn't been paid back. She's suing for $3,500. The defendants claim that Grandma was trying to help them and never asked for repayment.
Case number 123 on the docket, McGee versus Fisher and Ross.
And welcome to all of you. First, we have the plaintiff, Ms. McGee, and you are suing your step-granddaughter and her boyfriend for $3,500 for a personal loan on a new car.
Yes.
Why would you be suing your granddaughter?
My step-granddaughter, Kenyatta Fisher, came to live with me with her babies, and she asked me could I loan her $2,000 for an apartment for them.
Yes.
When I gave her the $2,000, she talked to her boyfriend, and they decided that they wanted to get a vehicle instead. Well, Your Honor, this started when she was 15 years old. I've been taking care of her basically since she was 15 years old.
And how did that happen?
Her dad died,
Oh,
which is my stepson. Kenyatta was a problem child, so we were asked would we take her back to California with us. Everything I bought her, like a cell phone, I let her use my computer, I bought her clothes. She used that all against me. Cell phone, she used it, text people, telling them that I was a horrible bitch.
Me calling her all types of names. Yes, I did call her all types of names. She read my diary. That was my personal diary. She wasn't even supposed to know that she got called types of names because it was in my diary.
I did for her babies. Even my daughter. I had my daughter bring her to her house before I even moved back to Chicago. Could you go get her? Because she got put out, her and the baby got put out, and they don't have a place to stay.
And your name is?
How you doing, Your Honor? I'm Tamika.
Okay.
I'm her daughter, and yes, I did. I went and picked her up, well, she had one child at that moment, and I took her in, and, till my mom moved back here,
yeah.
And I, provided her clothing, food, and diapers for her baby until, my mom got here. And once they moved in,
she asked me if her kid's father could also move in. And I talked with my daughter, because I talked to her about everything.
Are you her child's father?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think? She said, if both of them get jobs, which that's what Kenyatta promised me, that they were both going to get jobs, and they were going to provide for them and the babies. I never asked them for any rent or anything.
Well, she had two rules of the house.
All I asked to keep my house clean, and don't leave dirty clothes in the laundry room floor, because the furnace is there. And my other pet peeve is, when you use the microwave, just clear the time off of it. If you don't use it, if you don't use all the time,
it's petty, but
it's not petty to me.
It's your house. I got it.
Right.
Okay. First, they asked if she could borrow
$2,000 to get an apartment.
And then, instead of getting the apartment, they then said another $1,500, and we can put a down payment to a car.
She came up to me and she said, well, Grandma, we decided we wanted to get a car instead. I said, are you sure? I said, you need an apartment. And she said, well, we could stay with you a little bit longer and save our money and get a car, because you at work all the time.
Did you put any conditions on that?
She said that she would get a job. He already had a job, and that they would pay me every 2 weeks.
And did they ever make any payments?
Not one.
Okay. Now from you.
I asked her when I was 18, me and my mom got into an altercation. I asked her if we could come, stay with her for a few days. Yes, I was struggling. She did help me. She helped me a lot. But what I'm not going to sit here and do is pretend like everything was out the kindness of her heart, because it wasn't. She was helping me.
Yes.
This money became a loan the moment we moved out her house. This is when it became a loan. She got upset about my laundry. She didn't want it on the floor. Okay, that's fine. So I put them in the laundry room. Where else are they supposed to go? We got into an altercation. She choked me. I'm pregnant. I wanted to go.
You laid your hands on her?
Yes, I did, Your Honor. The furnace is right there, and if your clothes are all over the laundry room floor, it can start a fire. And she's like, I don't care. I don't care about anything that you tell me. And it just made me so...
She called me over there during the altercation, And what Kenyatta told her is, you're not really my grandma.
You're not my real
I said,
grandma
Kenyatta,
anyway.
why would you tell her something like that? I said, you keep using my mama. You steady asking her for money or provide for you and your kids, but the moment you get mad, she's not your real grandma.
You choked me. You're not my real grandma.
No, you said
Why
that to
put
me
your hands on me?
first.
So why are you using my mother? So
But
the last time
I didn't
with
use
this
her.
loan,
How? I didn't use her because they wanted us to come out there. They
No.
wanted
Okay.
us to move out there. They suggested that I bring my kid's father out there and move out there. I had a job.
Why did you move out there? I could see when you
I
were
felt
12
like it
and
was
13.
better. Like I felt like being out there with my grandma at her house could better our lives.
Was it a loan or was it a gift? You say it was a gift.
If she knew that I was struggling, why would she even want me to borrow money from her if I can't pay it back? I don't have a job, didn't have a job then, don't have a job now.
Why would she say, I promise, Grandma, that me and Justice gonna pay you back?
when they got the car, her boyfriend had a job. But when they got the car, as soon as they got the car, they left. So he got terminated.
And then come back, and I
so
kept
she
trying to
had the
contact them.
assistance.
We had a family issue. My granddaddy passed away.
Sorry.
So I was running back and forth, but I was still working. But at the same time, I had to go back to the city, check up on my mama, and check on my grandma because my grandfather had passed away.
So what I'm hearing is that from the start, when you were 12, 13, or 15, when you were very young and sadly your dad passed away,
I became rebellious.
Grandma said, and you were rebellious, which a lot of kids are. Here's your grandmother. I mean, she took on a rebellious teenager and kids that the teenager has, and you will soon see as you get older, that's a lot to take on. And she had rules. And if her rules were
Petty.
clean up the laundry, get yourself a job, those aren't horrible things. My wife still tells me where to put the laundry. You're suing your granddaughter, which I gotta tell you going in, I don't like, for the parent or the grandparent suing their kids. It's not a good way to discipline.
I'm not even suing her for everything, Your Honor, because I did everything, bought diapers.
I understand, but whoa, whoa, whoa. I finished saying how wonderful you were as a grandmother to take on this responsibility. That was wonderful. None of us who are parents or grandparents can start adding up every dollar, everything we paid for. You do that because we love our kids.
Right.
We love our grandchildren. Of course we're going to spend money, and I'm not keeping a total of everything my grandson owes me. That's what parents and grandparents do. Now, I almost think that this is a punishment to her to teach her a lesson that when she takes on an obligation, she needs to fulfill it. Okay.
And wrote a promissory note.
I'll take a look at the promissory note. All right. I, Kenyatta Fisher, promise to repay my grandma, Brenda McGee, every 2 weeks after I have secured a job. Do you have a job?
No.
I am borrowing money to get an apartment for my children and myself. I am borrowing $1,500, and you signed that, so this clearly at this point is a loan. In later years, when you look back at this, saying, I sued my granddaughter, this girl I loved and took in, this is a punishment. That is the wrong way to go.
But
So I'm
Your
going to
Honor,
say
she-
$1,500. Whenever she gets a job, she still has the responsibility to pay that back. Then every time the time comes to pay some of that back, she'll have to remember, oh yes, that's the time. I've got to fulfill my obligation. I fine for the plaintiff in the sum of $1,500.
She's steady saying she's a kid, but she keep having kids. When are you gonna grow up and be a woman and a mother?
As long as you keep making the immature decisions.
I don't ever want to see or talk to them again.
Plaintiff Sean Amerson sold his t-shirt printing machine at a steep discount, but the sale went sideways, and now he's suing for $5,000. Defendant Monell Castellan claims the machine arrived broken and leaking ink, so he's countersuing for $5,000 for repairs.
21 on the docket, Amerson versus Castellan.
Okay, thank you. As I see this here, the plaintiff, Mr. Amerson, is suing the defendant, Mr. Castellan, in the amount of $5,000 for the return of T-shirt printing equipment. And the defendant, Mr. Castellan, is countersuing in the amount of $5,000 for fixing the T-shirt printer equipment.
That's correct.
Tell me about that.
Your Honor, this con artist, Monell, stole my T-shirt
he can say
printer
that.
equipment.
Okay, whoa. You're going to get a chance in a moment.
So, Your Honor, about 2.5 years ago, I retired from the Air Force after having served 20 years on active duty. And so I
Thank you for your
decided to,
service.
you're welcome, sir, thank you. So I decided to start a T-shirt printing business.
Yes.
And I purchased this T-shirt printing equipment that was valued at over $19,000 2 years ago.
You got to sell a lot of T-shirts to pay for that. don't you?
You do, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I was running this T-shirt business out of my house for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't doing very good. And so at the same time, I was earning my master's degree in business administration.
Okay.
And so I decided to shut down the T-shirt printing business and sell.
You put up the printing
Yes, sir.
machine for sale.
Yes, sir. So I put it up for sale on eBay, and here's the original listing agreement on eBay where
Yeah, I'd like to see that, yeah.
I listed it originally for $5,000 plus $500 for a shipping fee.
Right.
And at that point in time, Monell reached out to me and made a counter offer for $4,500 plus $500 shipping. So I accepted his counter offer for $4,500. And so at that point in time, Your Honor, this equipment weighs over 500 pounds. You can't just ship this, via, postal service.
Right.
So I had to go and I had to find a shipping company that would, ship this equipment for the $500 that we
Yes.
agreed upon. And so there's an individual that lives up in the Minnesota area. He said he was on his way back, and then he accepted the shipment for $500. And so here's the receipt where I paid $500 to have it shipped from Texas to Minnesota. And when he arrived, he called me and said, "Hey, I'm here."
Did the printer work before you sent it?
It did, Your Honor.
Was the printer sold as is?
The printer was sold as is. As
Okay.
you
no,
can
that's a
see,
lie. There's no way that it said in the listing that it was as is. It said it was working condition. Even when it got to the house, he said it was working condition.
It's not necessarily contradictory.
Okay.
Maybe when he sent it, it was working because the delivery didn't go well. Something happened along the way that when you got it, maybe because of the way it was delivered, it turned out not to be working then. But we don't know that when he sent it,
It was working.
you don't have any proof that it wasn't
I have a
working.
video,
Whether it was
Your Honor.
working
You
or
what?
not when it was
I have a
sent, it's-
video.
There is a video of the printer working?
correct,
Let's
the day
look at.
before it shipped.
This is the Anajet MP5i printer that I sold on eBay. Go ahead and power it on. Everything's on. Everything's working. So we'll go ahead and power it off now and get it ready to ship.
All you showed is that it powered on. It didn't do anything.
When it got to our house, I had my wife videotape it because I was at work.
Now let's take a look at that video.
Okay, so that's one of the boxes. I heard him saying it's not even in the box. Okay. Where's the printer part of it?
It's in the car.
The printer. My goodness, it's so cold. It's frozen. There's ice on it.
Here.
That's where the ink is coming from.
So we opened it up. It had ink all over the place. So
Okay.
I called him up and I said, "Did you ship it with the ink in it?" He said, "No."
Okay, you're saying the equipment didn't work?
The equipment was soaked with ink.
Our
And it-
floor was
The
covered in
equipment
ink.
didn't work. What happened next?
What happened next? I'm wiping it out for 2 days.
Yes.
Right? And he asked me to turn it on. I said, "I'm not going to turn it on because I don't feel comfortable with turning on a machine that's wet like this." Right? And
Okay,
the
so
combination.
you let it dry. Two
So let
days
it dry.
later, you
I
turn
turned
it
it
on.
on, and it had errors in the window, like in the display.
At that point, Your Honor, he asked me what's the worst case scenario, and I told him right here in this cell phone text. I said you can return it for a full refund, and I have
And
evidence
we
of that
filed
right
the
here.
return request with eBay, and you refused the return request.
He's saying if it isn't working, you can send it back for a refund.
When we went to eBay,
Okay, in the complaint and in your answer, it appears that you're saying that when you notified him that it wasn't working, he suggested that at some point that you would send $2,000 so that you could fix it.
The same day that he said, will you accept the 2,000? Because first he said, okay, I'll see if I can find
So he
the
said,
shipping
will you
company."
accept the 2,000?
And we said,
And they said
yes.
yes.
We said, yes, send the 2,000. So we began ordering materials.
Yes.
Then the next day he contacts us and says, well, I can't give you a partial refund until 12 days from now, which, you know,
'Cause I was
our
broke.
time to claim on eBay would start to expire. We didn't hear from him for 20 days.
So how did this all end? You filed a complaint with eBay,
Yes.
and
You got the
eBay did
refund.
what?
We got what we paid for the product plus our shipping back.
But you still have the printer,
I still
and you're
have the
working
printer.
it. So
Yeah.
what you're telling me is you've got the printer, and you got your original $5,000 back.
Per eBay, yes,
Okay.
eBay told us to do both.
Got it. You said at some point that you were willing to give them $2,000, which brings the price down to $3,000 that you bought this for, and they're now fixing it.
Right, so they agreed to accept the $2,000. I said,
Which
give
you
me a
didn't
few
send.
days.
I got it. Hold on.
Give me a few days to get the money together and send it to you.
Yeah.
And I have proof of that. I have a receipt here that they said, here, sent to my PayPal account. And so I said, give me a few days to get the money, and then they basically went behind my back and filed the claim to
ran behind your
get
back.
it,
I
to
told
get it
you-
refunded.
Okay, I'm not asking you people to like each other.
And I've got the receipt
Here's-
here where basically this is eBay saying, you know, they're going to be refunded their money and they need to send back the equipment.
Okay.
No.
And so when that was done, when it all closed out, I basically tried to contact them to get my equipment returned, which they never returned any calls, any text messages. So eBay won't help me. I called the Oakdale Police Department. They go out there and talk to them and said, did you get your money back? Yes, we got our money back. Did you return the equipment? No, we didn't return the equipment. In what world do you live in where you get your money back, but you don't have to return the equipment?
They sent him
I
an email
understand.
telling him that if he didn't respond to our claim and refund us our money, that they would protect us under the eBay money back guarantee and let us keep the equipment. And eBay has that in writing. We got a
Okay.
letter from eBay saying
I
that they
believe
told
you.
you that.
You had originally bought a piece of equipment for $19,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
You initially were selling it for $5,000, which you agreed to. You got the piece of equipment. It was not right. And you were agreeing at the time to reimburse them $2,000 to try to get it fixed. And you now have a piece of equipment which isn't working yet, but which, as you told me, you're working on. And no, you are not entitled to your $5,000 back, but you are entitled to $3,000 because you had agreed to sell it to them ultimately for $3,000, because even though you originally said $5,000, you were willing to send $2,000. So the judgment in favor
Your
of
Honor,
the plaintiff
Your
in
Honor,
the sum
Your
of
Honor, can I say one more
$3,000.
thing? This man is a con artist, Your Honor. Wow. Wow. I hope you're proud of yourself. You are a terrible person.
Basically, they get to keep the printer and they get, you know, their money back.
He knew that we had that printer that we paid for, and he refused to help us or even respond to our emails or eBay's email.
Thanks for watching. Now please approach the bench. The way I look at it, you have two options here. Option A, watch more Judge Jerry. Option B, watch more Jerry Springer. The choice is yours. Now get out of my courtroom. You have more clips to watch. And don't forget to subscribe.